Is Ziggy the final villain of Eden Zero, or is he just the build-up and lead-up to a massive plot twist that we have yet to see coming? And no, I'm not talking about the whole Ziggy is future Shiki plot twist and theory that has been done to death and is honestly a really good theory. No, I'm going to be talking about how Ziggy might not actually be the final villain of Eden Zero. Before we get into the actual video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel with notifications on to show me that you guys are enjoying Eden Zero content on this channel, and it shows that you guys want to see more of it in the future. And liking and subscribing and even commenting down below will help in the YouTube algorithm to get this video recommended to more people, and will help the Eden Zero community grow and show that you guys really do enjoy my content. Also, don't forget to check me out on Instagram and Twitter at the Greek Weeb to see when I upload next time, or to see what else I'm doing outside of my usual manga reviews and anime manga content. This Eden Zero video has been done after chapter 199 of Eden Zero, where we got some massive reveals, and I am currently on vacation by the time this video comes out, so I wanted to leave you guys with an Eden Zero video for while I am gone. So first off, why do I think that Ziggy is not the main villain of the series, or at least not the final villain? Well, that really has to do with both the inconsistencies in both his memory, the Shining Star's memories, and how he was revived. Now, everyone was speculating that Ziggy is future Shiki, and that could still very well be the case. There is a lot of foreshadowing and symbolism to show that Ziggy could in fact be a future dark version of Shiki, potentially from the original timeline of the Eden Zero world. And time is just a whole thing that I don't want to get into, because that can be all really weird, and time isn't taken too seriously in this series, but it's really good for some nice plot twists. So if we do get to see an evil Shiki future version, I'm all for it. I think it'll be a pretty cool twist, even if we all have seen it coming. But let's start off with Z's memory inconsistency. We all know that he essentially died when Shiki was still a child, but when he was revived, he told Wizard that while he regained his memories of his trip to find Mother, apparently when he awoke on Granbell, somehow he had no memory of what he was doing prior to building Granbell and raising Shiki. He just woke up one day, and there he was. No memories, but all he did was raise Shiki as if he were his own. And now Ziggy believes that he regained all his memories, and now believes that Shiki is a threat to the universe. As well as the fact that he believes that he himself was wrong for believing that machines had hearts and that they could coexist, now wanting a machine empire. The memories of Ziggy right now are also conflicted with the memories of the Shining Stars, for the main reason that after going to places that Ziggy used to be in the old Eden Zero travelogues and meeting Zenolith, Ziggy's former teacher, apparently the Shining Stars seem to not be with him. Now, this has been an underlying mystery ever since they crossed over to the Aoi Cosmos. We have yet to get any real answers as to why their memories were erased, or why it seems that they were not with Ziggy. Everything leads to some sort of underlying tragedy or some conspiracy to both the Shining Star's creations and the trip Ziggy had to initially find Mother, as it ended with him finding Shiki and bringing him back to Granbell and disbanding the Eden Zero crew. Now, the inconsistency of Ziggy's memory in terms of waking up, not remembering what he did prior to Granbell, is something very curious, as the Shining Stars do still have memories of before they found Shiki, or at least up to when they found Shiki and then disbanded shortly afterwards. Something is up with the Shining Stars, and perhaps they could have been created right after Ziggy's initial journey and right after they found Shiki, and later Elsie for a little bit. But the memory inconsistency still cannot be overlooked, as we know that Ziggy has had connections with a multitude of people throughout his travels prior to finding Shiki. But many of these memories have either been erased or seemingly different from anyone else's, or at least still slightly similar. And this could all be attested to how he was revived, as well as a theory that Shiki had come up with when he was fighting Wizard. Maybe Ziggy initially planned for him becoming evil and wanted to set things up for him to be taken down. The whole thing about this is primarily going back to Ziggy's revival. Elsie went to go visit Ziggy on Blue Garden prior to Shiki and the rest of the Eden Zero crew so they could pay respects before leaving the Sakura Cosmos. Elsie stated that she felt a dark ether beginning to take hold of Ziggy's body, and so she kind of left the planet and observed it from afar, and then she came in and saved the day at the very last second. Now, this dark ether could potentially be part of who the final villain is. this dark ether seemingly corrupted Ziggy. Now, you could say that Ziggy might have had this dark ether for a while and it just took some time for it to fully manifest. But remember, Elsie stated that she felt this dark ether emanating from Ziggy, and then he awakened shortly afterwards. Ziggy was not like that prior, and he was kind, compassionate, and an overall jokey, fun guy. At least from our perspectives and the perspectives of the Shining Stars and Elsie and Shiki. So this dark ether might have something to do with Ziggy's corruption. A key instance to show that maybe Ziggy might be fighting back against his current self, or showing that his previous personality memories are breaking through, is in two very strong instances. Once at the start of Lendard, when he was talking with Aknoella and remembering his time raising Shiki, he was shaking, and he ended up saying that it was nothing, more or less like having himself up or remembering what he's fighting for. Now, we could say that to be maybe an act, or maybe Ziggy is just strengthening his resolve, or to confirm that he is 100% ready to kill Shiki, or this could be a sign that the original Ziggy that we know, that the Shining Stars, Elsie and Shiki know, is still somewhere in that body, and this dark ether created a new personality for all we know. A split being that is not entirely Ziggy. The second and seemingly most obvious instance is when Elsie was seemingly about to deal the finishing blow against Ziggy in their battle on Lendard. But right as she's about to, Ziggy struggles out and says for her to run, to grab Shiki and his friends, and to get as far away from Lendard as possible. Now obviously this shakes up Elsie, causing her to hesitate for a second, questioning if this is actually Ziggy. But then Ziggy then uses his powers to stab Elsie and deal a very damaging blow to her. Now this could have obviously been an easy ploy by Ziggy to trick Elsie to get her guard down and to deal one final blow. However, with what we saw earlier in the arc, with him remembering his time with Shiki and that whole trembling aspect, as well as the fact that Shiki brought up during his fight with Wizard, he brings up the fact that perhaps Ziggy knew he was going to go crazy, that he was going to be possessed by this dark ether, as he brings up the fact that maybe no one knows what Ziggy did 18 years ago, and that's why he believed that he would be going crazy, and that there might be some secret in the memories that were erased from the 4 Shining Stars, which is why there's some inconsistencies from their memories, and the fact that they essentially were not there with Ziggy in certain moments of his journey and meeting certain key figures that would later play some sort of role in the rest of the series. Now, obviously, Shiki, major points for actually bringing up a really nice point and really breaking down the logic of the situation, as, yeah, no one knows what Ziggy did 18 years ago, back before Shiki was essentially even born. During the journey, during what happened up to the point where he found him, as well as the inconsistencies of the memories. Everything adds up to something just not being right. And the idea that Ziggy knew that he was going to go crazy, that he was going to turn on everybody, is a very strong possibility, which also brings into the fact that it makes sense why Ziggy would train Shiki from a young age to use Satan's gravity, perhaps to prepare him to one day take him down. Which would also explain why he didn't want the Shining Stars on Grand Bell and told them to go off on their own separate journeys. Perhaps to have them see the world and maybe even get ready for when Shiki would eventually come on to the Eden Zero. Which makes sense, as Witch stayed aboard the Eden Zero waiting for either Ziggy or Shiki to reappear. And perhaps to have the Shining Stars grow stronger in not just their strength but in their own understandings and experiences in life, because perhaps they were not around up until the end of Ziggy's journey to right before he presumably met Mother, or when he found Shiki, so that they could be ready for an eventual confrontation between him and the soon-to-be created Dark Stars and the Eden's One. Perhaps the whole thing with training Shiki and the separation of the Shining Stars was so they could all get stronger, meet up, and potentially stop him from doing whatever it is that he could potentially do in the future. It does make sense, the inconsistencies of these missing memories and events that just don't make sense. Ziggy's bizarre reawakening and revival by this dark ether that Rebecca mentioned, it all just ties into it. I think Zenith in the Foresta arc gave us a very key piece of foreshadowing that might actually lead to what the final villain might end up being. When Zenith met Shiki for the first time on Foresta, he mentioned that gravity is more or less very difficult, in the sense of saying that it's very easy for one's emotions to overtake them and can be dragged to the dark side of gravity, to fall to the darkness. Zenith states that he knows from experience. After all, he was essentially the one that created this ether gear, this ability in the first place. And Ziggy might not have been his only student. Perhaps someone in the past, perhaps during the Dark Ages, once fell to darkness through the power of this ether gear. and Zenith had to be the one to stop them. And perhaps this Dark Ether might be a portion of this character's life, this previous Dark Satan's gravity wielder that somehow managed to find their way to Ziggy, or maybe exists in all Satan gravity users in the ether connecting them, or something like that, and found Ziggy as a suitable host, reviving him and basically kind of taking over, maybe creating his own personality based off of Ziggy, since he is technically an android, and the original Ziggy's memories were also revived, but his personality was locked deep away, presumed to be gone forever. This would be a nice twist reveal to fully explain how Ziggy went to the dark side and how he's changed from the way he used to be just a couple of years ago. And we have enough breadcrumbs to piece this potential thing together, and perhaps the final villain could either be the original wielder of this Dark Ether being revived through Ziggy, or maybe it could just end up being Mother at the end of the series, and this is all just part of some big master plan to find some kind of ideal future, since there are chronophages and Ziggy says that they are connected to Mother, because Ziggy claims to know a lot of secrets about Mother, the chronophages, and all of this different stuff, meaning that there is a strong connection to Mother that Ziggy does have, or at least he knows more than he is essentially saying. So for all we know, Mother herself could be the final villain of Eden Zero as like a nice twist ending, and could honestly give some meaning to Ziggy's whole Shiki will be the doom and destruction of the cosmos, because Mother is basically an ancient all-powerful being that kind of represents all the cosmos and more or less created everything. So maybe Ziggy believing that is actually believing that Shiki, for some reason in the future, could destroy Mother with his ether gear. But again, this is all reaching far into the realm of possibility. The point is, with the breadcrumbs we have, with the inconsistency of the memories, the Dark Ether, Xenolith's foreshadowing of falling to darkness, Ziggy's seemingly split personality or memories trying to break free from his current predicament, all this is adding up to maybe Ziggy might not even be the final villain. The penultimate villain, maybe not the final villain. As with how the current arc is looking, this feels like the climactic arc against Ziggy, the final fight between Shiki and Ziggy, their full, true climactic showdown. And with the current plot twists, with Ziggy's plans in terms of finding Mother currently being revealed and being ready to get revealed, it truly does feel like we're reaching the end of this Ziggy arc, or overarching Ziggy saga that we're currently in right now, and will lead up to a big reveal of either what's going on with Ziggy, or perhaps the true main villain of the story. Either way, those are just my thoughts and opinions on what this whole thing could eventually be. Obviously, I could just be wrong, and this could just be a future Shiki time travel shenanigans type thing, which I'm fine with too, as long as it's explained very well. And I do have faith in Mashima with whatever he decides to do with Ziggy. I'm sure it's going to be good, as it has just been built up so well over the last 100 chapters. And I personally just can't wait to see more. But what do you guys think of everything I'm talking about in terms of Eden Zero and Ziggy being the final villain? Leave your thoughts, opinions, and theories in the comment section below. I do try and read every single comment, and I love interacting with you guys with whatever it is I'm talking about. Now, with all that said and done, I hope you enjoyed the video, and hope you all have an awesome day.